Right, folks, and welcome to the Sports Hour podcast. This is our second installment of the series. I am here, I am Dan, and with me today we have Blake. Say hello.
Hello guys, I'm Blake, co-writer of the Sports Hour podcast.
Yep, and today we will be reviewing last week's game between the Eagles and Giants, getting you fans updated and ready to go for this week's game against the Carolina Panthers, and reviewing some of the scores from around the league last week and talking some other general sports as we go. So that's what we have on the docket here today. So to start off, for you Eagles fans out there, I would say this week has been a pretty good week. The Eagles really did do quite a number on the Giants this past week, who really just looked lost as they've almost given up. Well, what would you say about that, Blake?
If I would say the Giants, they looked really lost. They seem like they're playing like they're giving up. And if you're a Giants fan, I hate to say it, but jump that ship and just bandwagon another team at this point, because there is no hope for you Giants, for the Giants to do well, and I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. The Giants are, well, they're hopeless.
Yeah, the Giants are the Giants. I mean, there's quite a little bit going wrong. I mean, the only bright shining star on that team right now, or at least this past week anyways, was Saquon Barkley, who had 13 carries for 130 yards, averaging 10 a carry and a touchdown, as well as having, on the receiving end, 9 receptions for 99 yards. So he's putting up over 200 yards total offense, but guys like even Odell Beckham couldn't really get going. He had 6 catches for 44, Sterling Shepard 3 catches for 37. So there really wasn't a lot going on good for the Giants. I mean, Eli was 24 of 43 for 281 and a pick, and that's just not going to get it done, especially when you need to put up 34 points against this Philadelphia offense, which was all over this Giants defense. Wentz drove the team up and down the field, 3 scores for himself. Clement and Smallwood, they kind of did their job, but they weren't really all that impressive, which has kind of sparked some thoughts in the land of Philadelphia, where some people are saying that, quite frankly, we might need to pick up a running back before the trade deadline. Blake, in your opinion, do you think they really need to pick up a running back, or do you think they can do it by committee?
I feel that they could do running back by committee, share the load between Clement and Smallwood. They don't really necessarily need to get like a star power running back. I know a lot of people are wanting to sign Le'Veon Bell off of Pittsburgh, but my opinion on that is I really don't want Le'Veon Bell in Philadelphia, because he was holding out in Pittsburgh for God knows how long, and what's to say he won't do that in Philadelphia?
I mean, yeah, all he needs to do is play, I believe it's 6 games in order to be eligible for free agency. So he can play 6 games, refuse to play for us for the playoffs, and just say goodbye. I mean, that's quite literally the reality of what very well is at play here, which it just makes it a very, very bad scenario.
Right.
But there have been some other names out there. One or two I'll throw up there have been Tevin Coleman of the Falcons, who has not looked terribly great this year, but he's a name that's popped up at one point. There was talks, of Carlos Hyde up until a couple of days ago when he was traded over to the Jacksonville Jaguars from the Cleveland Browns for a 5th-round pick.
Yeah, I laughed
one
at
guy,
that.
Yeah, I can't believe we didn't give them like a 4th for that. I would have done that, every day of the week, honestly.
Twice on Sunday.
3 times on Sunday. You kidding me? And then a guy who I kind of pushed for a little bit, though he wouldn't necessarily be that explosive, is to try and trade like a 5th or a 6th round pick to Miami for Frank Gore. Now hear me out on this. I know Frank Gore, I believe he's 35 years of age. He's getting up there in age. He has over 10,000 career rushing yards, so there's a lot of tread, it's been taken off those tires. But here's my case. This year so far, he's been used sparingly behind Kenyon Drake, and they have a couple other running backs that they can throw out there anyway. So though Gore is there, and he can kind of be a little bit of a mentor for those guys a little bit, mentorship in the running backs, you got to get that from your coach. You have specialized coaches for specialized positions. You can't always have just mentor types around. And quite frankly, no pun intended. Frank Gore could do some serious help just to take some of the load off of Smallwood and Clement. I mean, Smallwood, I do not think at all as a feature back in this league. He's a very, very balanced guy. He can kind of come in and spell a little bit. I think Clement's more of a role player who can, take 10 to 15 touches maybe in the game. But they need somebody to be kind of a pure power back. And with the fact that Frank Gore could be a low-cost, low risk, high reward, very, very small, compact, powerful runner, could be, the veteran option they could, use. And this is probably his last year in the league. I know he wanted to play in Miami because he went to college in Miami. But quite frankly, you could also consider the fact, hey, maybe he'd like to win a championship because he's played on a lot of really bad teams. San Fran was bad for all those years. And then there's only the 1 or 2 good years where Kaepernick was their quarterback before they, shipped him off and whatnot after the whole racial tension thing.
Alex Smith was good towards the end.
Well, towards the end, but in the first few years of Alex Smith's tenure, I mean, they were pretty bad.
They were bad.
And Alex Smith, didn't really figure out most of the things in his career until he was 32, 33. And, Frank Gore, then he spent I believe 2 years in Indianapolis, and what did that do? I mean, he's playing running back next to Jacoby Brissett in the back of the shotgun. No, you're not going to win games like that. It was just some waste of any years towards the twilight of his career, which is, I mean, since he hasn't won really a ton of big awards other than just being to a few Pro Bowls, that has almost tainted his career in the sense that it's now a kind of borderline Hall of Fame career. Because he's always been a top 5 to top 10 back for a long time.
Yeah.
But he hasn't quite been on that winning roster. And maybe if he was to come to Philadelphia and they made a deep playoff run and he was an impact player, he could see himself in Canton just simply because of that and just be the determining factor.
Right.
But that's just my thing. I think Eagles personally need a veteran body. Who it is, I don't know, but I'd prefer it to be somebody who's a bit more built up in power, and probably somebody, we can get for a 5th or a 6th round pick, somebody who's a low risk, high reward, just to fill the slot. There's 3 young guys. Can you really trust it that much? I don't know. And then you got receivers where we've been filling in bodies with veterans like Jordan Matthews, who brought him back. And all receivers this past week looked pretty darn good. And guess what? The defense looked good. And for all of you Eagles fans out there who have been bashing Jalen Mills, I have some points later on I'm going to make about this that are going to make your head spin about Jalen Mills. I am Team Green Goblin. And I know I'm kind of biased. I am Team Green Goblin, though. Trust me. And the Eagles' defense, they looked pretty good last week. A couple sacks. If I had to put anything bad on this defense, other than the fact that Sidney Jones got a little bit dinged up during the course of the game, is I'm tired of the way Michael Bennett wears his pads. It's not the NBA, bro. Put some actual shoulder pads on. It's not a tank top. It just looks stupid. You just look stupid.
I noticed that on Thursday night against the Giants, and the only reaction I could really bring myself to have was just laughter. It's laughable. It's hilarious.
Yeah, and I thought it was going to end, in the preseason, because we saw it a little bit in the preseason. I think it's almost gotten worse, personally. It looks horrendous, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I figured, it's preseason. He's not trying. Okay, whatever. And he looks like he's out there, ready to scrimmage for a practice. He doesn't look like he's game ready.
Exactly. But then you see him play, and he's like, oh, well, damn, he can play.
I don't know. In some of these games, he's been really a non-factor, but some of these games he has been pretty good. He's been he's either hot or not. I think there's 2 separate games this year where he had a sack and a half or better. But beyond that, he's been shut out completely.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, I don't want to see him out there a whole heck of a lot, because there's 2 guys I want to see out in that field who I think are the future of our pass rush, and that is Derek Barnett, and that is Josh Sweat. Now, a lot of people know about Derek Barnett because last year when he drafted first round, he had broken the Reggie White sack record at Tennessee by 4 or 5 sacks in 1 less year or whatever. And he's a pass rush guy. I still had my worries about him playing the run, but he's seemingly gotten better at this year. But Josh Sweat's a guy a lot of people don't know about. He is long. He is strong. He is built like an animal. He was going to go in the first round, possibly even like a top 15, top 20 pick. But I believe he tore his ACL, I believe his junior year, and thus he became a fourth-round pick for the Eagles. And they're not using him a whole heck of a lot, but he has made a couple plays on the very few snaps that he has gotten. And that's a guy I'd like to see get more snaps because physically he is an animal. I mean, he's like 6'7", 265, 270. He is long. He is strong. He's got some serious motor, and I'd love to see some more of him on the field, for sure. So let's get going with one of our weekly segments. Can we really call it a weekly segment? I mean, this is the second week, but let's go through the player grades. So let's just kind of go back and forth. You give me a grade, and I'll see what my grade is, and we'll just keep going from position group to position group. How's that sound, Blake?
Yeah, that sounds great, Daniel.
All right, so let's start off with the quarterbacks for the Eagles. So that would be Mr. Carson Wentz himself, who ended the game with a 26 completions for 36 attempts, 278 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. What was your take on Carson's game?
Carson played pretty good. I'd probably give him B+, A- work. He played pretty impressive. O-line protected him good, but we'll get to that later. But as far as just Carson Wentz playing, I can't remember what his actual stats were against the Giants, but from visually watching him play, it's only his, second or third game at quarterback since the ACL injury, and
I believe it's the third at this rate.
Right, I think it is the third, but regardless, at least to me, you might have a differing opinion on this, but I feel that Carson hasn't missed a beat since going down in Week 14 last year.
Yeah, Carson seems to be the same Carson. I mean, he hasn't thrown and had some masterful game with 380 yards, but he's been the Carson we expect him to be on a week in, week out basis. He's putting up anywhere from 250 to 290 a week. He's getting some touchdowns. He's got at least 60+% for completion percentage. I'm personally going to give him a B+ because I know he can do better. But really, with what was available to him on the field in that game, what was given to him, and what the receivers have been doing lately, that's pretty much as good as you're going to do. So you really got to work to get an A from me. I'm kind of a tough grader on that.
Mm-hmm. All
right, so next, we're going to move into the running backs. Now, for me, personally, the running backs are going to get a C+. Now, and I might even be generous on this. Smallwood, 18 carries for 51, averaging less than 3 yards a carry, which is dismal. And there's Clement, who had 11 carries for 43 yards, 3.9 a carry, and a touchdown. Now, Clement looked noticeably better than Smallwood. Smallwood had a pretty just dismal, mundane game. Nothing really to talk about. Clement was on a pitch count, kind of. We were told he was going to get limited snaps during the course of the game. Did pretty decent, as far as I'm concerned, and quite frankly, I think he is definitely the better of the two backs. But until he can get 100% healthy, which in the NFL, is anybody really ever 100% healthy? It is a physical league after all. We might not see Clement really take the top dog carries away from Smallwood like we need him to. So I feel like the Eagles will be kind of limited because they will have to be giving a certain amount to Smallwood, or a certain amount of, even reverses to Alec Aguilar to try and find the run game, or some screen game type stuff, tight end screens, wide receiver screens. And I'd like to see the kid out of Notre Dame, Josh Adams, get some carries too, but they don't seem to be too keen on using him as of yet. So we'll see how that goes. But I think personally, a C+ for the game, very mundane. Clement had a good game. Smallwood was just crummy. How about you? What are your takeaways?
You said C- for the backs, yes? Or just
C+. C+.
I'd say C+ too. Like you said, Smallwood was crummy, and it was just all around mediocre. More game management type running than big explosive running. More just calling runs to set up the pass and play action. So it was mainly just using the run for game management at that point. And so yeah, C+ I'd give.
All right, next we'll move on to the receivers. I'm just going to kind of go down the list here. I've got the box score open here in front of me. Nelson Aguilar, 3 catches for 91. That's not bad at all. He had a couple deep receptions. That's good work on him. Finding open places on the zone when Carson's moving around, trying to find guys downfield, buying extra time in the pocket. Alshon Jeffrey is being the #1 receiver he really needs to be. 8 catches for 74. I mean, it's not a high average, but with the 2 touchdowns, including some of those nice screenplays they were running down by the goal line, that was really nice. Ertz, 7 catches for 43 and a touchdown. Not his best game, but still a lot of catches, and he is still on pace to set an NFL record for receptions in the season by a tight end. And on top of that, Mr. Zach Ertz is one of the first 17th guy all time to get 48 or more catches at this week in the season, which is incredible. And he's the first tight end to do it. And he's definitely on pace to break some tight end base records if this keeps up. So I'm very happy for the guy.
I also think, I mean, it's not just tight end records we're probably going to be talking about that he's going to break. Let's take like a couple minutes just to talk about Zach Ertz right here. Because, oh dear God, Zach Ertz has been balling out of his mind. Like, if I could give tight ends, so this will kind of actually go into the play. I'd give Zach Ertz alone like an A grade. Because Zach Ertz he'll break the tight end records, no doubt. But I think we're going to get into some wide receiver record categories here too.
Well, going off those wide receiver records as you put them, I have them pulled up here in front of me. The #1 overall mark ever put up in a season is 143 catches in the year 2002 by Marvin Harrison, who he did this at age 30. Mind you, it's less impressive when you consider the fact he was getting amazing throws from Peyton Manning in a Tom Moore offense, coached under Tony Dungy. So, I mean, everything was set perfect. But you got some other numbers from guys who are of recent note and still playing even, such as Antonio Brown in 2015, 136 catches, as well as Julio the same year, 136. Antonio Brown makes another mention up there as well in the 3rd slot. Brandon Marshall's up there, Torrey Holt, Jimmy Smith. I really think, personally, that the guys who are towards like the 20th mark on all time could actually be in trouble of losing their slots to Zach Ertz, because he's on pace to be about 115 to 120 is my best guess if this really does keep up, especially if the Eagles don't really use Dallas Goedert. I mean, we figured, they're going to run a lot of 2 tight end, things are going to be awesome, we're going to have pretty much 2 Zach Ertzes out there. And no, they just keep using Zach Ertz even more so than they ever have.
Yeah.
So guys with like Isaac Bruce, ranked 12th all time, 119. Like a number like that might go down a slot because of Zach Ertz this season if he keeps this up. That's very possible. I mean, a guy we know, and it happened in our division just a few years back, Pierre Garcon with Washington put up 113 his first year. So guys like that kind of towards the top but not quite there, some of them might indeed fall. I mean, 143. I mean, that is insane. You figure a 16-week season, you're averaging like 9.7 catches a game. Do we really expect that out of Ertz? I mean, he's close to on pace for it, but that's asking a ton.
Yeah. Okay, so I do have one question for you about Zach Ertz.
Go for it.
If Zach Ertz retires, were to retire right now and not finish the season, is he wearing a gold jacket in his lifetime?
He would have been definitely retiring too early, but if he keeps this kind of level of play up for another 2 or 3 years, I would say yes. Because he's definitely amongst the top 3 tight ends of this generation, for sure, hands down, no question at all.
Are you saying first ballot, or is he going to wait a little bit?
He probably won't be first ballot. It's really hard to be first ballot as a tight end. The only tight end of this generation who has a chance at first ballot is Gronk, simply because people like Gronk, and he's a figure that is noticed in the media. even though he's rather overblown, tons of injuries, etc. I feel that Gronk would indeed be the only one who has a remote chance at first ballot. I mean, there's very few players who even get first ballot. I mean, you have to be the cream of the crop for like a good decade to be a definite first ballot.
Yeah.
And Zach is in pretty much a 2 to 3 horse race every year, and he'll probably foreseeably be in that race for the next like 5 years or so.
Yeah. All right, so I guess
it's him, Gronk, and Kelsey every year.
Yeah, it's him, Gronk, and Kelsey. So what's next on the grade list? What have we still got to get to? O-line, right?
Yeah, let's just get into the O-line real quick. Okay, so offensive line, they looked better, but here is my gripe. Jason Peters is my gripe. And I have been saying this to you off the podcast, and I have been saying this to my friends, to my family, anybody who will listen to me. Jason Peters, I understand that he didn't play in the Super Bowl and he got hurt like halfway through the year last year. He should have hung him up last year. I don't know if he's played every snap in a singular game.
I don't think he has.
Year. I really don't believe he has. And this past game was no different. I think he did take some of the back end of the game off. I mean, to be fair, they were up 30-something to 10. So, I mean, who really cares? But that is the franchise quarterback's blind side.
Yep.
Jason Peters, my dude, I love you, my man. You're going into the hall. You are a true footballer. You are an animal. But let me tell you what, sir. You have to retire. For your own good, for the franchise's good. Go out on top as a beloved figure and not a villain, because you're slowly turning into a villain in this town. Because you are holding back either A, Lane Johnson moving to the blind side, or B, getting either Vaitai or Mailata out at left tackle. Yeah. Mind you, Mailata, he's not ready.
Nope.
Vaitai, he's pretty solid.
Yeah.
The thing is when you take Vaitai in and out of the game constantly, he doesn't get in the flow. And what we saw last year during that Super Bowl run after Peters went down, Vaitai was dog crap for about 2 games thereabouts. And then once he got acclimated to being on that line and where he was on it, all of a sudden, I mean, he's not quite as fast as Peters, he's not quite as athletic, but you weren't like, oh my god, Vaitai messed up again. Like, he was solid as all get out.
Yeah.
I mean, he felt like a top tier left tackle. I think Pro Football Focus or something, I saw, and I might be wrong, so anybody who wants to call me out and say I'm wrong, I apologize. I believe he was ranked 18th best left tackle last year, which is like, it's middle of the road. He is a starter in this league when he is given his opportunity. It's time to move on from Jason Peters. But enough about Jason Peters and my gripes about him.
Yeah. Okay.
And enough about the whole Wisniewski versus Amali debate, or this and that and the other thing.
So normally we review the defense, but I mean, this is just my opinion. I really don't feel that there's really a need to review the defense. I mean, they were playing the lackluster New York Giants. I mean, a blowout was expected, and a blowout is what we got. So, I mean, I feel that we should skip the defense, and what do you say about going into the second installment of Get Angry?
Okay, this ties in perfectly. So I'm ready to get angry. Because, first off, I'm angry at you for skipping the defense, because I love defense. So my first gripe is with you. No, but real talk. This defense, I understand that Saquon Barkley is a gosh darn demigod. But let me tell you, my friend, what was that tackling Thursday night? What was that? That tackling was awful all game. There's so many times where they break 2 and 3 and 4 tackles, even if he didn't get a ton of yards. I mean, Jordan Hicks missed a couple tackles. Ronald Darby doesn't look like he has arms. I mean, goddamn, some of these tackling attempts were just dismal. And the guy who led the team in tackles, my my guy, I'm gonna back him up, and I'm not angry about him at all. Mr. Jalen Green Goblin Mills, my dude out there. And here is, I'm gonna piggyback off of the angry, and sorry. Here's a silver lining to all this anger towards the defense that's underperforming. And all you out there are saying, hey, I like Darby better. Why is Jalen Mills out there? I'm going to bring up a couple key stats here that are going to blow your mind. And I foreshadowed these earlier, and you're going to not like me now if you didn't already not like me before. You're going to hate my guts now.
Oh,
and according
Daniel.
to Pro Football Focus, Jalen Mills allowed a lower QBR than Ronald Darby, a lower completion percentage than Ronald Darby over the last 20 games played between the two, where they were both on the field at the same time. Though Mills is indeed targeted more, Darby's more likely to give up a completion almost 10% more likely. We just kind of rag on Mills because he gives up a deep ball or two here and there, because he can't make up if he makes a mistake. And even then, Darby can't quite do it because he plays 10 yards off the line, and because he's afraid to get beat too, even though he's got tons of speed. And just a couple weeks ago, we saw guys like Sidney Jones, who are still rookies. He's not quite developed yet. In like the Tennessee game, for instance, he was targeted 7 times, gave up all 7 catches. The next game, he kind of struggles a little bit, and then in this game, he gets hurt. So let me tell you what, those of you who are like, oh my God, I love Darby, why is Mills out there? Bench Mills. Here's the reality. At the end of the season, they have the money to have one or the other between Mills and Darby. Mills is going to cost you about $5 or $6 million a year. Darby's going to cost you maybe close to 10 because he really thinks he's something. And I get it. Like, Darby might have a higher ceiling. I get it. But what we've seen in the NFL the last couple of weeks, where there's big-time corners who are really not making a big difference. We saw Xavier Rhodes, Minnesota. Minnesota's been giving up a ton of yards, even throwing Rhodes his way. Jalen Ramsey, the last 2 weeks, talking a whole bunch of smack about Tyreek Hill and getting burnt, and giving up 4 Dallas with guys who belong as deli clerks playing wide receivers. Okay? These guys are schmucks. It's just ridiculous. It blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, Philly fans, sit down, buckle up. You're probably going to be watching Jalen Mills out there on that field, either playing corner or a slot corner or a safety the next 5 to 6 years in this franchise. And he will do his finger wag, and he will have his hair green. He'll be like, oh, come on, man, every time he gets beat deep. I get that. But that is just reality. This man fits the team. He fits the energy. He's got a cocky swagger that actually is nice. It doesn't bother me. I mean, a lot of people who are arrogant, cocky, kind of bother me. Mills does not. So that is just my little, 2 cents in there about what's going on with the getting angry. So, Blake, what are you angry about yourself?
Oh, what am I angry about? So anyone who knows me knows I am a diehard Colorado Avalanche fan. And while I am not angry, I'm switching gears to the ice rinks right now. While I'm not angry about winning 2 in a row and defeating the Carolina Hurricanes today 3-1, and yesterday the unbeaten New Jersey Devils fell to the Colorado Avalanche by a score of 5-3. I'm angry at NHL officiating. Like, I know people are all up in arms about the NFL refs, but if you've seen the NHL, oh God, it's been horrible. The NHL NHL officiating has been horrible. Like, they're calling phantom hooks and holds out of nowhere that really shouldn't be holds, and I mean, I think they've lost the definition of icing through the years. I mean, with the adding of no-touch icing, which, I mean, it was to reduce injuries, but I feel that some of those pucks are able to be gotten by the offense, and they just wave them as icing. And it's like, well, you're kind of ruining my possession at that point. And some refs just aren't letting the teams play. I mean, hockey's a very physical, fast-paced game, And if you're not letting the teams play, then hockey loses its appeal.
Right. And I'm going to play a little bit of counterpoint to that. Because I am also an angry fan just watching sports in general when it comes to referees. Now, as much as I want to be angry with the refs, and sometimes they really do screw teams, I'm going to be completely real. In the digital age in which we live, where replays are readily available, there's 15,000 cameras. A television broadcast will show you every gosh darn blade of grass on the field and all this. The mess-ups by the refs are amplified, more easy to find, etc. Much more than they were in previous generations. And I feel, thus, not only has this gotten into the head of referees who don't want to make any mess-ups, and they'll then kind of come up with some phantom calls or try and make up some calls to balance things out, and goodness knows what, but just, it's in general, refereeing has become a much harder profession. And as much as I want to hate the refs, I know there's probably quite a few calls that do go in the favor of our own teams, if we're being completely honest. I mean, I know you have your alliances spread across a multitude of teams. I'm personally a Philly 4-for-4 guy. And I was just on the way home from work earlier today. I was listening into the 76ers basketball game, and it was the third foul of Markelle Fultz in the third quarter. And the announcer, instantaneously, right after making the call, goes immediately from making the call, 3 seconds later, he's angry, he's up in arms. He already has a review in his hand on a tablet, and he's watching it, and he sees not even an ounce of contact, and he's getting called for a shooting violation when the guy gets 3 chances at the free throw line. I believe it was Alex Gordon who took the shot, but that doesn't really matter too much. They're playing against the Utah Jazz tonight. So that's a really irrelevant team, to be perfectly honest. But that's the reality. The refereeing has become a much harder profession. Now, I'm not all for the idea of fully automating refereeing, but there needs to be maybe some checks and balances in place. Like, hey, a ref throws a flag on the field. It's like, okay, holding. Like, somebody in New York can have a camera. It's like, that was okay. Just pick it up. I would be perfectly okay with more picked up flags. That's okay. That's fine by me.
Yeah.
I think having, multiple cameras and people sitting in a room. I mean, the NFL brings in billions of dollars. They can pay a few blokes who understand the rules, $70,000 a year to stare at a monitor and watch this side of one team's line to look for holding. Like, that's perfectly okay, as far as I'm concerned, if they want to do that. And I think even if it lays up, kind of slows down the broadcast, the broadcast, and you're like, oh, we got a flag on the field, oh, never mind, yada, 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 and kind of going back and forth and, interrupting the broadcasters. I don't care if somebody shuts up Joe Buck for a couple seconds.
Oh, God.
If I'm being perfectly honest.
I don't care. I don't care if someone shuts him up for a couple seconds either. That's part of the reason why I'm not watching the World. I will not be watching the World Series this year. And it's not that I don't like baseball, because I like baseball. But, oh, sweet dear God. Baseball on TV is boring enough. I don't need Joe Buck, I don't need Joe Buck screwing it up with his boring-ass, non-emotional broadcast voice. I would rather watch I would honestly I'm going to watch it muted. I'm watching it muted.
I mean, half the Eagles games, I listen to audio on the radio whilst the broadcast is muted. And I remember there's only a couple good Joe Buck commentaries that come into my mind. And one was the 2008 NLCS, I believe it was Game 5 in LA, 8th inning. It was a 3-run shot by Matt Stairs, and it's my favorite baseball moment of all time. Because for whatever reason, it meant more to me at the time than the Lidge save to close out the 2008 World Series. And it was Matt Stairs, a swing and a drive deep into the night. Phillies lead. That was the entire quote. It was nice, simple, short, and for the first time, and I think since Joe Buck actually had more than an ounce of energy for a team from Philadelphia, so that was kind of nice.
Yeah.
It was actually double kind of nice because Matt Stairs jacked that ball. And two, I loved Matt Stairs that year. He was like the ultimate pinch hitter that year. Because that little man, he was like 5'9", but real chunky. boy, was he hitting some moonshots. All right, so we've been getting angry, and all of a sudden we've gotten very, very tame and mundane and kind of nice.
All right. So, there's one game I do want to review because I'm in Colorado. Obviously, you're in Jersey, Philadelphia area. So I want to review the Thursday night game, Denver versus Arizona.
Because, oh God, this bloodbath.
Because that was, if you're an Arizona fan, if you were at that game, one, I'm sorry. Two, I hope you left early to beat well, there probably really wasn't any traffic. It's the Arizona Cardinals, let's be real. But, like, that game came out of nowhere. It really came out of nowhere. Like, because you're expecting a 1-5 team versus a 2-4 team. You're not expecting it to be a 45-10 game.
Right.
Like, I wasn't expecting that. For some reason, like, all of a sudden the Denver defense just woke up and the running game wasn't god-awful.
I mean, that expecting kind of like a 27-13 kind of thing. Denver's still winning, quite obviously. And one thing that did result out of that game is the offensive coordinator, Mr. Mike McCoy, Mr. screwing my fantasy team by not running David Johnson, finally got fired. And now I feel super old because guess who their new offense coordinator is? Byron Leftwich, the former quarterback of the Jaguars. He's currently their quarterbacks coach, and now he's the offensive coordinator of the Arizona Cardinals.
What? Brian Leftwich?
Byron Leftwich.
I haven't heard it. I haven't heard that man's name.
2002, he got drafted by Jaguars.
I have not heard Byron Leftwich in forever. Oh my God! Like what? He was so mediocre. Yeah, he was so mediocre. He just disappeared off the face of the earth, and nobody knew what happened to him. And now he's the OC for the Cardinals.
Well, if memory serves, he was in Jacksonville for a while. Then he backed up in Pittsburgh, and then I think he went to go coach in the college game, and then got a job as a quarterbacks coach in the pro game, and now he's finally got his first OC position. Now, mind you, this is not his own offense. He's pretty much running the playbook of Mike McCoy. He's just kind of calling the plays, which even then, I mean, Mike McCoy kind of sort of used Melvin Gordon the right way in San Diego when he was the head coach there.
Yeah.
So I pray to God Byron Leftwich just picks the plays that worked in San Diego for Mike McCoy, because Mike McCoy has forgotten how to Mike McCoy. I'm going to be perfectly honest.
Mike McCoy can't Mike McCoy. So speaking of the coaching,
he's forcing Rosen to do a whole bunch of stuff, and Rosen can't do it.
Yeah. Speaking of the coaching carousel now firing up, Tampa Bay, the defensive coordinator has been fired in Tampa Bay. Yeah, you're fired. Has been fired in Tampa Bay, and for good reason, because you can't rely on Fitzmagic forever, and that defense has looked like Swiss cheese.
I mean, to be fair, that defense, where is the talent? I mean, yes, you have a big name in Gerald McCoy on the front line. The rest of the front line is crap. Your only good linebacker is Quan Alexander, and he's like a top 10 middle linebacker, maybe? And then your corners on the outside, I mean, you've been trying to develop them, but they're not really any good. I mean, you have Vernon Hargreaves as your number one corner, and he's been hurt most of the year. And on the back line, you got Mr. Meme himself, Chris Conte, the guy who got stiff-armed into oblivion on Twitter just a couple weeks ago during that Steelers game that everybody and their brother was watching on Sunday Night Football.
Mm-hmm.
But what is kind of funny is that man has grace. Mr. Mike Smith, that defensive coordinator, was just fired. He had the job in Atlanta for so many years. They were good for a long time. They got rid of him for Dan Quinn. And now he can't even hold a job as defensive coordinator at the one of the arch rivals of his old team.
Right.
These different getting just blown the hell out.
Yeah.
That's a serious fall from grace. And he wasn't even that bad in the first job. He shouldn't really have lost the first job. I mean, I get it. Matt Ryan and the rest of the company, they kind of just underperform, but is that really the coach's fault? Not always, per se. All right, so we kind of brought up a little bit of Week 7 prematurely, but I kind of want to go through some Week 6 stuff, and in front of you, Blake, I think you should have it as well.
Yeah,
so make sure that you had it.
Scores.
The box scores going across. So we'll just go from left to right, and we'll just kind of go through some of these box scores from last week. We'll just give a quick little reaction to each one of these from the Week 6. So we start off with the aforementioned Buccaneers-Falcons. This game was a bit closer than I personally had anticipated, now with Winston back at quarterback, because I think Winston really is kind of a piss-poor quarterback. He's not the franchise quarterback they envisioned. I was actually talking to somebody recently at work, and I told him, like, you can get either guy at 25 years old, would you rather have Tannehill or Winston to build a franchise around? And he actually said Tannehill. And Tannehill is the lukewarm, just tap water, just blah, middle-of-the-road crumb quarterback embodied. And you'd rather have that over Jameis Winston.
First thing I'd say about that is, what drugs are you smoking, and are you willing to share? Because that's the good stuff, if you're really thinking that. Because he's Ryan Tannehill. That's really all we got to say about that. And Jameis Winston started off good out of college, was good in college, and now it's just like, what happened?
I mean, he's not a real leader. He's not really that good. He doesn't use Mike Evans enough. How do you not use Mike Evans? Just throw it in his general direction. How do you think Matt Stafford got a $100 million quarterback contract? He just threw roughly in the zip code of Calvin Johnson for 5 years and got himself a contract.
Exactly. It's like
before he actually figured out how to play quarterback for real in the NFL. Like, that's literally what he did.
Mm-hmm. And it's like you have certain wide receivers, Johnson, Mike Evans, Larry Fitzgerald is in this group too, where, like, I know all the coaches, they'll preach, don't throw it into coverage, throw it to the open guy. But those three in particular, Larry Fitzgerald's been doing it for a long time. Calvin Johnson did it his whole career. When they're covered, they're open. Like, you just got to throw it up there and trust them, and for the most part, they'll catch it if it's in the relative zip code.
When they're covered, they're open. Okay, listen here, Terrell Owens. Listen here, Chad Ochocinco. Guys who were known for saying that back in the day. Okay, you're honestly right. Who am I kidding? You're honestly kind of sort of right. Like, like, for instance, if I'm like a guy like an Andy Dalton, who's the next group we're gonna be like looking at here, from that Steelers-Bengals game where the Steelers won 28-21. If I'm Dalton, am I just lobbing up a ball to Tyler Boyd? Or am I throwing the ball roughly in A.J. Green's direction and just seeing what happens? I'm throwing the ball at A.J. Green. Or I'm running Joe Mixon in the ground. But, I mean, it is what it is. Personally, if I'm Andy Dalton, I'm running Joe Mixon in the ground because he's on my fantasy team. But, I digress, my boy.
Yep.
Joe Mixon, go, Joe, go. I mean, that boy's been given a lot of touches this year over Giovanni Bernard and whatnot, and he's finally having a bit of a coming out party, even after all the issues he had in college, and how a lot of Eagles fans are actually calling for him to be drafted by the Eagles regardless. But your reaction on the 28-21 game, I mean, it's a hard-fought game, it's an in-division game, they're usually pretty good. What was your takeaway?
It was hard-fought game, division game, so we knew it was pretty much going to be close. It wasn't really going to be a blowout. I think the Steelers were expected to win. They won. I didn't really feel that the Bengals were going to win that game because Andy Dalton.
Because Andy Dalton. I feel you completely on that. Is like for me, like if I'm ranking the NFL quarterbacks, I think Andy Dalton's, even though he's looked pretty decent this year, I think he's 15 for me. He's barely on the top half. And if you were to say all his years he didn't have A.J. Green and he's just trotting out like the guys he's had, like Tyler Boyd, Mohamed Sanu for a little while, I mean, can you really defend the guy? I mean, come on, he's not that great.
Yeah.
He's not awful, but he's just very mundane. He's just he is the mayonnaise of quarterbacking. He's just blah.
He's the stuff that you don't really want on your burger unless it's mixed with like some chipotle sauce or something to give it a little bit of extra flavor.
You need
he's
something
vanilla.
to carry it.
He's vanilla.
He's just there. He needs other things there to carry him.
Exactly. He's just a warm body that can throw a football.
Yeah, better than some other guys. For instance, we could go let's look at the next game on the list here. We have the Chargers absolutely blowing out the Browns. I mean, I don't think we really need to say much about this. Melvin Gordon went off. He helped my fantasy team a lot. That's pretty much it. I mean, the Browns just got whooped. I mean, Baker Mayfield did nothing. The running game didn't do much.
But I say, and I know
that's pretty much all we got out of that game.
Yeah. Like, this is really cliche, but I'm gonna say it anyway. It's Cleveland. What'd you expect?
That is fair. All right, now we move on to a game that I was expecting to be a blowout, but ended up being close somehow between the Texans
and the Bills.
Oh, what a toilet bowl game this was. The brutally injured, cracked rib Deshaun Watson out there, hobbling out there with a walker in extreme pain versus the Bills quarterbacking room. Oh my God. The influence of Nate Peterman on an NFL game will never surprise me just not be just
as you have said
horrendous.
As you have said to me off the podcast, Dan, Nate Peterman doing Nate Peterman things.
Oh my God, yes. And guess who's starting for the next year? Not next year. I mean, obviously we know who's starting for them next year. Next week. Did you hear who's starting?
Oh, Jesus Christ! Who is it?
Hints. He led the Browns to a 10-6 record, I believe, in 2006, almost giving them their first playoff berth in God knows how many years.
Oh God. Oh no. I'm just saying, oh no. Like, I don't know who it is, but don't say it's not Jeff Garcia, is it?
No, Jeff Garcia's like 45, my dude.
Fair enough.
He could probably still sling the rock better than this guy we were going to put in there. Former backup of Cam Newton, Mr. Derek Anderson.
I have not heard that man's name in years.
Still in the league. A very, very, very poor man's Kerry Collins going out there. The absolutely immobile, stand there in the pocket and fire it type quarterback. He is going to be under duress, and I feel so bad for the guy. He's one of those quarterbacks where he's clearly just hanging around just to sit up as a backup and just make a couple million a year and not have to get hit.
Yeah.
He's about to get himself killed. Poor guy.
Sorry. But yeah, he's going to die.
All right, so let's go to the next game we got here on the list. We got the Dolphins that were led by Brock Osweiler. This dude has made so much money for being the just biggest you-know-what show. You know what now, a sugar honey iced tea show that I have ever seen. I can't believe the Bears gave up 31 points to him throwing to a bunch of bums and handing off to Kenyon Drake. I don't care that they were in Miami. They could have been in the middle of dude.
They could have been in Iceland for all we care.
They could have filled up a stadium with 400,000 Dolphin fans, and I would still would have said, Bears by 10.
Do 400,000 Dolphins fans even exist?
Dude, we'll just pay some actors. I don't care. But you get what I'm getting at here. It's just, how did that happen? I was expecting a kind of 34-13 kind of game. Bears get 2 pick sixes. Mac gets 4 sacks, but no. Osweiler looks decent, and that was once confusing. But oddly enough, there's some stats I was looking into. He's got a history of playing well against the Bears, but nobody else.
Yeah.
His career passer rating against the Bears is something to the effect of like 105.
Like, one of his only wins as a Denver Bronco was against who else but the Chicago Bears.
The Bears.
Exactly. And it's like, okay, so it's close to Halloween time. I mean, if you remember the meme from last year when he was a Houston Texan.
Oh my
Oh my God, yes, because they paid him like, what, $15 million, and he played like garbage. So,
dude, it was much more than that. They gave him like a 4-year contract for like 80 mil.
right.
And then Houston's like, nope, get out of here. And they traded him to Browns just to eat the contract and then cut him.
Yeah.
For them. Just because they had the cap room.
Yeah, if you don't know the meme, I highly suggest you look it up. But what the meme is, it's an eBay auction of a Halloween costume of a trash can wearing the number 17 selling for $15 million.
Ah, yes.
Because
Excellent.
he was affectionately known, at least by me, I don't know if other people called him this, as the $15 million garbage can. Because he was garbage.
That he was. Okay, so let's move on from Brock Trashweiler and the disappointing Chicago Bears and Dolphins games. And we can go to, when we already touched upon the Cardinals' struggles before, but it's from this week, which they actually put up a decent fight against Minnesota.
Yep.
I feel like Minnesota should have blown them out, and they didn't. And I don't really have much other reaction beyond that. I mean, Minnesota should have blown them out, and I mean, it was a 10-point game, but like still.
Yep. And then next up we have, this one was surprising, the New York Jets.
Oh my God!
And the Indianapolis Colts. This final score of this game, 42-34.
Combining for 76 points. Are you kidding me?
It's the New York Jets, my guy. Like,
dude, like they couldn't have put up 42 points against like an NFL Europe team. And there's only so many people who remember what the NFL Europe teams were. And God bless you for if you don't. Okay, pretty much a whole bunch of players who were like kind of decent, who played for like unranked college schools, who weren't good enough to make a pro roster. They played in NFL Europe. That's what that was. It was second rate. It was like, it's like playing against a CFL team in modern times.
Yep.
The Jets, I don't know if they could have put up 42 points against the CFL team. How they did against the Colts, I don't know. Darnold's kind of The running game's crap. Robbie Anderson's your best wide receiver. Quincy Enunwa's got no speed. He's kind of just... And the offensive line's just not there. They have no offensive scheme to speak of. I mean, they're very just vanilla.
I don't even think they could have. I don't even think they could have put up 42 against the Ohio State Buckeyes.
I mean, I think the Buckeyes' defenses might be even better than like a team or two in the NFL. But exactly. I digress.
Cleveland.
Cleveland's defense is pretty good. I would point out Buccaneers' defense. They have no star power there. Or how about the next team we're about to talk about, who got blown out last week?
The Seahawks and the Oakland Raiders.
A 27-3 up in the California area.
Up at the O.Co Coliseum in Oakland, California.
Yeah. Which will no longer be their home for too much longer.
But which fact...
I think is a crying shame.
Yes. But fun fact, if you're interested in fun facts, it is the only dual-use stadium left in the NFL, as it is the home to the Oakland Raiders and the Oakland Athletics.
Well, there's also a stadium out there that currently has no uses in the NFL, and that is where the Browns play, Paul Brown Stadium, because what's the use of showing up there? Because the team's just going to lose anyway. Or you could say that the, what do they call it? MetLife Stadium is a trash bin for two separate entities.
Hey, the Athletics made the playoffs this year.
Yeah, playing absolute money ball, and I guarantee they're going to be crap next year.
Yeah.
Oh, they are. Let's be real.
Yep, yeah.
Let's just move down the list. Let's kind of rapid fire the rest of this off a little bit. We got Panthers, Redskins. Redskins pulled out a close one. I was kind of really torn because I don't want to see Cam Newton do well, and I don't want to see the Redskins win. So I was like, how much do I care about the Eagles' chances versus how much is like, do I just hate Cam Newton? Because he's the kind of cocky person I don't like. I touched on this earlier. Like I don't mind a guy like a Jalen Mills, but like Cam Newton, he's sexist, angry, just difficult person to even understand like how he functions as a human being. And there's some people out there who thinks he's a damn good quarterback. And yeah, sure, he's a fantasy football darling. His teams do generally pretty well. I'll tell you this. The reason why he's so up and down every year, and how statistics say that the Panthers are the second most up and down win-loss team in the last 10 years, it's quite simply the health of Cam Newton. And he runs around like he's a running back, and guess what? When he's 34 and he's 35, I don't see him developing to the same level of a passer that a guy like a mobile quarterback early in his career like a McNabb was, for instance. In his career, he's going to go down the crapper. Let me tell you what. As a pure quarterback, if you gave every NFL quarterback the exact same speed, I think Cam Newton would probably be like the 25th best quarterback. And now I know some people are like, oh, that's low, he has a massive arm. Like, have you seen the way he throws? Just watch his form. Looks like he's about to uncork a deep ball for like a 10-yard pass. I think he's just because he's throwing his absolute whole body into it, more or less. His mechanics are awful. His footwork is sloppy. He's not the smartest quarterback. I'm sorry.
Nope.
He's just not. His reads aren't great. And his touch, his accuracy, he doesn't know how to throw a floater. Everything's a bullet. It's kind of rough. He's hard to root for. He's hard to watch, quite frankly.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the next thing, which was the Rams Broncos.
Rams.
We're the team that you used to watch, but now you're an Eagles fan. I don't know how that happened, other than the fact that you lived in both places.
I still do watch the Broncos.
Cough, cough. Mr. Blake has a Tebow jersey.
No, I don't.
You sure about that?
I have a Peyton Manning. I have a Peyton Manning jersey, a Nick Foles jersey.
I swear you used to have a Tebow jersey.
I had a Tim Tebow T-shirt back in the day.
Close enough.
Close enough. But I have my jerseys in my closet are Peyton Manning, Nick Foles, and the other one we don't talk about.
Tebow.
No, Eli, which is why we don't talk about it. But
what? I almost want to talk about it.
Only, and we'll talk. I guess we're talking about this now. The only reason I have an Eli jersey is because I like Eli Manning I like Eli Manning. I don't like the Giants. I think they're garbage, but Eli Manning, for what it's worth,
I am dumbfounded right now. I don't know how to feel. I know how to feel, and I just don't want to put those angry emotions towards you right now. Oh my god.
Anyway, back to the Rams Broncos game.
Hold on, can I at least say what jerseys I have in my thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I won't get into my hockey or my baseball or any jerseys, but I'll just say football jerseys. I've got a Connor Barwin, I've got an old Donovan McNabb jersey, and currently in the mail, I am waiting for a jersey from guess who?
Carson Wentz.
Guess again.
Nick Foles.
Guess again.
Donovan McNabb.
I already said McNabb.
Oh.
It's hint, defense.
Jalen the Green Goblin Mills.
Actually, Malcolm Jenkins, but I was considering Jalen Mills. I'm going to be perfectly honest, I was considering Jalen Mills, but I ended up going and getting a Malcolm Jenkins jersey. So I'm waiting for that in the mail right now.
Nice.
Because I love me some Malcolm. The guy, great civil rights, great human being, gives back to the community, just like some of the other guys on that Eagles roster do. Just a phenomenal guy. Chris Long is huge on that as well. I love Long.
Yeah, alright, so Rams
teams on this, yeah, they don't really deserve it.
One game I do want to go.
That was closer than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. One game I will want to go in depth is KC Patriots because, wow. But
Wow. Yeah.
Rams.
That's the only one out of the rest of them that really
Yeah.
warrants it.
Rams,
but yeah.
Broncos. I thought everyone was saying the Rams are going to be like one of the best teams in the NFL, and you barely beat one of the worst teams in the NFL by 3 points. Yes, it was cold. Yes, it was in Denver, but still.
Yeah. Imagine when you get a team that's playing against you when it's cold, and they're actually good. Yeah, the Rams were susceptible to falling. I think they've had a pretty easy schedule. They've got a cupcake division. They started off hot, and who knows if they can keep it going the rest of the year. I think they might start to falter towards the end.
Yeah.
Next game, Jaguars, Cowboys.
I don't want to talk about that.
That made me sad. Yeah, let's just skip it. Leonard Fournette's been kind of messing me up in fantasy. Let's just skip that.
Yep, we don't talk about that.
Ravens, Titans. Wow. 21-0. That's surprising. Tennessee's been rolling. I mean, they haven't been scoring a lot of points, but goddamn, they've been rolling. And Joe Flacco and company is no true number one running back with no, true number one receiver, and a lot less star power than they've had in recent years. Go out there to Tennessee and shut out the Titans. Big game for them. I think that might be a turning point in their season. And that they might very well this year, if they can continue playing like that at least most weeks, I think they can seriously make a wild card spot this year, which could be pretty interesting to see. Because that really heats up the debate of, hey, do we stay with Flacco or do we hand it off to Lamar Jackson?
Yep.
Now, talking about quarterbacks of the future, we had one of the past and one of the future in this week's game between Kansas City and New England, where Mr. Patrick Mahomes, who's the perfect storm for Andy Reid. Now, some people were thinking coming into the season, what is Patrick Mahomes going to be? You've got a smart quarterback with high character, a massive arm, in an Andy Reid system getting coached up by Big Red himself after sitting a year. What did you expect other than borderline greatness?
I expected...
What could you have possibly expected?
I expected
And there were so many
less.
people who were like poo-pooing him and not drafting him in fantasy and saying, oh, they're going to be kind of bland, why did they get rid of Alex Smith, da-da-da-da-da-da. It's like, boy, Mahomes was ready to go, and he has been showing it. Now, mind you, they lost 40-43, but they put up 40 in Foxborough in a shootout with Tom Brady. And the only reason they lost is that Kansas City has the defense. Like, Kansas City's defense is a wet tissue. Like, it's so bad. It reminds me very much of the teams they had in the early 2000s, where they had an absolutely stacked roster, where they had multiple future Hall of Famers on that O-line, including Brian Waters and Willie Roaf, blocking for backs such as Priest Holmes and Larry Johnson in the early parts of the Jamal Charles' career. There's guys like Trent Green at quarterback. There's some pretty underrated but pretty good wide receivers out there, just like Eddie Kennison was out there. Dante Hall was a great slot guy to an extent, but he was really known for his return game. And the tight end of probably the best tight end of all time, Tony Gonzalez. I mean, they had an absolute juggernaut on offense, but they had no defense. They were trotting guys out there like Kawika Mitchell at middle linebacker, and guys who just couldn't tackle and couldn't do jack. And it's reminding me a lot of that. And I really fear that if Kansas City doesn't develop a bit of a defense in the next couple of years, that Andy Reid's scheme set up for Mahomes will finally be figured out, and it will be a lost chance at maybe making a run at a championship. Because Kansas City right now is very much in the same position as Philadelphia was last year, where they don't have their quarterback signed up to some $100 million contract, so they can put it into their team, and they need to make these years count.